I think there are some timeless characteristics of leadership that have always been there and probably will always be there. And to me, they would be things like vision and courage, integrity, drive for results. But there are definitely some new emerging competencies that are reflective of the changed context that we now are in. And, you know, I would describe the key elements of that changed context to be one, it's a much more global world now, and most organizations actually are organized in a global fashion, certainly in the multinational sector. And they have very complex organization structures. So a lot of people no longer have one boss. You may have a boss and then two others that are, you know, very key stakeholders. The second thing is just the pace of change is so dramatic. And then lastly, I would say the impact of social media has been huge. I mean, what it has done, I think fundamentally, is it has changed the context of how you communicate. So you no longer really own your message as a leader. You know, there's just information coming from everywhere. You know, people are tweeting information before you ever get to shape your story. So that has changed the context. And I think the emerging skills that are relevant in that context are things like people who are very adaptive, who are practically minded, who can distill down a lot of this complexity and still chart a clear course for their teams. The other piece would be around engagement and collaboration, ability to develop relationships with people across the board, ability to listen, to understand the context they're coming from. And that would so include kind of managing diversity. That's a big competency that's becoming more and more relevant. And then the last one I would say is, you know, really coming at things more from a win-win perspective. You know, the days of kind of having the quick win and, you know, hoping that the consequences won't be obvious are sort of gone, because now the consequences will be tweeted before they even happen. So, you know, that whole kind of sustainability, long-term outcome focus is becoming much more relevant. And certainly in my experience of working with some fantastic senior female leaders over the years, I've seen those competencies come out very clearly. They tend to come quite naturally to a lot of women leaders. So I think there's definitely opportunity there. The main obstacles, in my view, are number one, the lack of role models. You know, we definitely need to have more role models to make, I suppose, to demystify in many ways what leadership, senior leadership, is all about. The fact that you can actually have a life and still be in a senior role. So the more women see other women, you know, being successful in those kind of roles, then the more attainable it becomes. So that's number one. Number two, I would say, I mean, the whole work-life thing is certainly, you know, an obstacle. There's no doubt about that. You know, a lot of these roles have intense schedules associated with them. Some of them have global travel associated with them. And so, you know, you do have to be well organized. You do have to have a strong support network, you know, particularly if you have a family. And it is still the case that, you know, women probably carry a higher level of responsibility on the family front. So, you know, it's absolutely doable, but people need to understand that it's doable with the right support structure. The other thing is, I would say there are some more subtle factors at play. So some of them that I have observed is that, you know, women tend to want to be 100% sure that they can do something before they'll sort of put up their hand and volunteer to do it. Whereas, you know, a lot of men I've worked with tend to be more comfortable with, you know, if they're 70–80% sure that they can do it, they'll take the risk, and rightly so, you know. So I think we need to be more aware of that kind of natural tendency, if you like. The second thing is that I notice women tend to get very focused on doing the work, what I call doing the homework, but not necessarily, you know, packaging it, marketing their achievements, making sure that the right people know, you know, what outcomes are coming from the work that they're doing. So that's just a fact of life. You have to get on and do that. but I think we have to educate ourselves better that that is a requirement. The work will not speak for itself. And then the last one is really around networking. I mean, it's well known that women don't prioritise networking, and even those who do tend not to use their network as well as I've seen men use their network. So those are all more subtle things, but they are things that I think ultimately in combination have an impact and cause some obstacles. I think if you take each of those elements, take the role modelling piece first, it certainly behoves those of us who are in leadership positions to engage and, reach out to women who are growing their career and, discuss things we have done, how to go about it, and just generally be more available, I think, to women who are developing, because it's all about having the confidence to believe that this is attainable. That's a huge element. So that's number one. On the work-life front, I would say companies need to really kind of take a different approach to that and look at it from the perspective of, what are the really core job requirements? What really needs to be done and what are kind of nice to have? I think the other things are, flexible work schedules. I mean, certainly in today's environment with connected workplace, remote working, it's so much easier to provide people with flexible schedules, and it's something that's highly valued by women because very often they don't then have to step off the career ladder. In some instances, people choose to step off the ladder for family reasons. I'm seeing many, many more women now staying on the ladder because they're able to work in this more flexible way. The other areas would be mentorship and sponsorship. We certainly need to engage more men and women involved in those areas. I have had the benefit in my career of a lot of mentoring and support by men, actually. So, those having structured programs around mentorship and sponsorship for high potential women, I think is very important. And lastly, I would say awareness. Awareness to me is a twofold thing. So one is educating women on the rules of the game, what it takes to influence at, the most senior levels, what are maybe some of the obstacles that they're maybe not aware of, that kind of unconscious obstacles that I touched on earlier. And then awareness for people in general, men and women, around what it takes to be an inclusive leader, and how to get really the best out of your talent, regardless of culture or gender or anything else. So I think the awareness has to come at both levels.